All right, there we go. We're live with the one and only Doug Larson from Barbell Shrug. Doug, thanks so much for coming on board, man.
You bet, man. Appreciate the invite. It's good to hang out again. I haven't seen you in over a year now.
I know it's wild to think about. We were just talking about that. How it's just like how fast time goes, right? It's like a year ago we were in the Grand Canyon, and it feels like it was maybe 3 months. It's like it's wild. But I guess when you think about it, every single day is relatively shorter than the previous. So every day you live is technically shorter than the last one that you lived.
It's a lesser percentage of your total life. Is that you mean?
Of your total life. Yeah. Uh huh.
Yeah, I've thought about that. Like when you're on summer vacation, you're like 8 years old or 12 years old or whatever. It's like it feels like it's a long time. And then the older I get, the faster the months tend to tick by. Yeah, I think that's a good theory. Like the smaller the percentage of your life it is, the faster it goes. That's why the years seem to tick by faster and faster once you're, in every decade of your life. Kind of accelerates in a way.
Your relative experience of time gets shorter and shorter based off of your previous experience. Yeah, because like when you're a kid and you have a 2 month summer, it feels like eternity. It lasts forever. And now it's like I look back and I'm like, mother, 2 months? Where did the 2 months go?
Yeah. I had someone tell me that they said like once you have kids, like the days are long, but the years fly by. I was like, did you just tell me that like the the days are long because the days fucking suck, but like you'll be dead soon, so don't worry about it? Like, did I take that the completely wrong way? But I think there's something to that. Like the days can be hard, but then I do when I look back, I go, God, man, like if I was just in college, like, oh, that was 15, 20 years ago now.
Yeah, I have a 10-year college reunion coming up because I've been getting like emails and texts like, hey, you come to the college reunion, come to the reunion. I'm like, I almost don't want to go because it's hard for me to appreciate that it's been a decade. Oh man, but
Yeah, I haven't done any of that type of stuff yet. Like gone to like a high school reunion or whatnot. Like I feel like it's almost unnecessary. It's like you can still access and communicate and see pictures of, et cetera, of all your friends from the past. Like, and if you're already not communicating with any of those people, then you probably don't really care to. Like you have the opportunity to reach out.
I stay in touch with all my really good friends. If you're from high school or college and like we were good friends, we still communicate and talk all the time. It's like it'd be good to see each other in person, but probably not a reunion. I would rather just like go on a mountain trip or a beach trip or go backpacking or something. We'd probably enjoy ourselves more. But dude, less of this. Let's dive in. So, for the people listening who don't know who you are, could you give them the quick elevator pitch rundown, just who you are, what you do? I'm imagining most people listening have heard of Barbell Shrugged. So, let's just kind of give them that elevator pitch and bring them on board.
Yeah, we can totally start there. That's certainly how most people know me. They know me from Barbell Shrugged. We were very fortunate to kind of ride the podcast wave and the CrossFit wave at the same time. I wouldn't say that was the intentional. We didn't know that CrossFit was going to blow up as big as it did, and we didn't know that podcasting was also going to blow up as big as it did when we first started. We were running a gym in Memphis, Tennessee, called Faction Strength and Conditioning, and one of the guys on our team heard us having many, many conversations about training, and he was like, dude, you guys need to start a podcast. And we all kind of looked at him like, we don't even know what that is. We never heard of a podcast. Like, what do you mean? He goes, you just record conversations and post them online. And so we slowly kind of wrapped our heads around what that would look like and bought some microphones and had some conversations. And initially, it was just kind of a fun thing to do. It wasn't supposed to be what it turned into at all. You're on a show just like we're on a show right now. Nobody has their phones out. Everyone's paying attention. You're asking like thoughtful, thought-provoking questions, and we're all learning from each other at the same time that we're also just kind of telling dick jokes and joking around. So it was a good blend of just having a good time with actually learning something, and then of course ultimately the audience doing the same, being entertained and being educated at the same time. And it very quickly spiraled into something that we realized, oh, this is going to be a thing. This is going to be something that we do for a long time. And that was a little over 10 years ago now, and we've been podcasting ever since. We've done, I've probably done 1,000 podcast episodes at this point, 700 or whatever it is for Barbell Shrug. But then we also had Barbell Business for a while. We did a couple hundred episodes of that. I did a show on YouTube that's still on YouTube, of course, called Technique Wad, where I just taught people the basics of lifting weights. There's a couple hundred episodes of that. So if you want to learn how to do everything from snatch and clean and jerk to bench press to lunges and double unders and muscle ups and all the CrossFit things that you've seen in a functional fitness gym. I have many videos on all that, and we eventually were able to turn it into a real business. and we had a couple of dozen people on the team, and we had good revenue coming in where we could take this show that we were doing that we thought was so much fun and travel the world and interview people that I grew up learning from. I read their books, and um, you know I um, I had followed their training methodologies for a long time, and I looked up to them. They're like my idols and my heroes in the strength conditioning space, which I've been fortunate to be in for essentially my whole life. And it just turned into like a dream job for me that I didn't even consider to be a job. It was my favorite thing to do. It wasn't a job. It was what I wanted to do, whether I was getting paid or not. It was the coolest thing I'd ever done, and that's been my life for many many years now. Which kind of changed when the pandemic hit. Of course, I went from doing this like traveling the world with my best friends and meeting all these cool people in person and lifting weights with them and taking them out to dinner and shooting shows, to doing more of this thing where I'm just sitting in my house like doing Zoom recordings. So the excitement kind of wore off over the last couple of years of the pandemic, but luckily it looks like we're kind of making our way out of at least the peak of all that, and we're starting to travel a little bit, and hopefully can start doing some more in-person stuff again moving forward. But a very very fun gig that I've been doing for a long time.
I love, man. That's the dream, right? Like if you, it's not work at that point. It's just fun. It's just play. And yeah, it's gonna be fantastic that the world's opening up again. People can start traveling, get you guys on the road again, doing what you do best. And I think, where I would like to start with questions is that if I remember correctly, you have a pretty lengthy background in what we would call, I guess, martial arts. I know you're practicing jujitsu right now. And then you also have a lot of experience in your training in the strength conditioning and CrossFit, powerlifting, whatever it is, right? Because they all overlap in one way or another. Like really good training is really good training. It's very principle based. I'd be curious to know, in kind of your martial arts experience and then in your training and lifting experience, what are some of the commonalities or lessons learned in those two worlds that you think have really positively impacted, I think, you and then like the clients or the people that you're helping in terms of like the day-to-day execution, your ability to be successful over the long run? Because that's one of the things we've been talking a lot about recently is it's not hard to bring somebody on board and have them be successful for 12 weeks, right? Like, but that's not the goal. Like the goal is to figure out a way to help you be successful for 12 weeks, 3 months, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Like that's what we're trying to accomplish here. And I always think that the martial arts and the lifting background is a really interesting combination. And I would love to hear what some of the big lessons you've learned in those two worlds are, maybe.
Sure. At the risk of stating the obvious, the biggest one for both martial arts or training or any sport or just being a business owner or whatever is just consistency. It's almost cliche to say it because it's everybody says it, but really it's totally true. Like if you're consistent and you stick around for the long term, you just keep showing up, then over time you will improve. There's better and worse ways to go about it when you do show up, certainly, but the biggest thing is just if you keep showing up. If you show up 5 days a week for 10 years, you're gonna be way better off than if you just didn't show up at all, or if you showed up for a couple days a week or 6 days a week even, but then you did it for 2 months and then you stopped and then you showed back up 3 months later and you're kind of just like off and on, off and on, off and on. You just got to show up every day is easily the biggest thing. Um, there's definitely uh, a a smarter, not harder approach that I think is worth mentioning here. Getting injured is one way that even if you want to keep showing up and being consistent, if you're injured, then it almost by definition you're not as consistent because like if you hurt your knee and now you can't squat for 6 months, then even if you showed up, you couldn't do what you needed to do to get better if you're a weightlifter or a CrossFitter or whatever. So if you're constantly like training hard and then having to do rehab and then training hard again and then doing more rehab, then you're not going to get as far as you would otherwise. And I'm the voice of experience there because I spent a lot of time getting injured. Um, in my case, I just love to train, and so injured or not, I just wanted to go train. And so I wouldn't even put myself in the category of like really dedicated or like really tough. I just love doing it. And so I like doing it so much that I didn't care if I was hurt. I just wanted to go. Like I've definitely had times where like I got injured maybe I might even be like at the hospital and I'm watching like videos of like technique on my phone. You know what I mean? I'm still doing it even when I'm banged up. And so kind of moderating my own passion has been has been something that I've had to learn to do over the years. Like, how can I still get better every day without doing something stupid, without being like, oh, like it does hurt, but I'll be all right. But then it hurts a little bit more, and then I'll be all right. And then all this, eventually it goes from being like a nagging pain to like you're actually hurt. How do I stop before it actually gets bad? How do I tell myself no and convince myself I'm doing the smart thing rather than I'm wimping out or whatever it is. Like I have those conversations in my head all the time. Like it hurts a little bit. I'm like, God, am I just fucking being a pussy? Like I'm trying to convince myself not to do this. Like no, like you gotta work through it and just do it anyway. Like and it's like I go back and forth about like what the right thing to do is. But now that now that I'm not really competing so much anymore. Not that I'll never compete in anything ever again. I'll probably still do jiu-jitsu here and there. Um, Figuring out how to train consistently, but keep either train around the injuries or to just when to back off and when to push forward is really the game once consistency is not an issue. Because consistency is not an issue for me. It's figuring out what to do when I show up and not doing something stupid because I'm already hurt. And if you're doing martial arts, if you're fighting MMA and competing in weightlifting or CrossFit or whatever it is, like I did for many, many years, I'd be training for 5 hours a day. I'd go to weightlifting practice for 2 hours, and then I'd go to kickboxing for an hour, and then I'd go to jujitsu for an hour, and then we might have MMA practice after that. And I trained from like 2:30 till 9 p.m. Best time of my whole life. But at the same time, I was often hurt. I was often banged up, and I would always be like my shoulder be achy, and so I'd be moderating my jerk volume at weightlifting. And then if I did a lot of heavy pressing, and then I went to jujitsu, and someone pushed on my shoulder the wrong way, and I would tweak it, then then it's just kind of in there, but I'm still going to practice anyway. It's like I could never convince myself to take the time off that I probably should have, and that's ultimately why I stopped fighting MMA. Was I had injuries, mostly my neck, which has hurt for 10 years now, and I'm still at some level I'm still doing it. Like my fucking neck was killing me the other day, and I'm out there doing 5x5 back squats, and I'm just doing it anyway. So at some level I follow my own advice, at some level I don't. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny that description there is really the thing that got me into strength conditioning in that whole world, because I fell in love with the weight room probably sometime in middle school and trained all throughout middle school, trained all throughout high school, went to college. And then college is when I first started running into a lot of injury issues, like multiple stress fractures in my back, pulling muscles left and right. It's like, was I getting bigger, faster, and stronger? Yes, but I was on this never-ending roller coaster of like, get better, get injured, get better, get injured. And it's like, you track that out over time, and I'm just like not ever getting any better. It's kind of just like a flat line once you take out the peaks and the troughs. And so when I got out of college, that was like my number one question. I'm like, okay, how can I do this thing? Because this is what I love to do. How can I do it in such a way that I can train hard, fast, and heavy, and I can be strong, and I can put on muscle, and I can be fit, and I can have endurance and all this other stuff? But how can I do it so that I don't continuously get injured? Because that's a thing I haven't been able to do yet. And so that was like the whole trajectory at the beginning of my career. It's like immediately go out, at that time just Massachusetts, with Eric Cressy and his whole staff and team there, intern there for 4 months. From there, immediately go across the country to Indianapolis to spend time with guys like Mike Robertson and Bill Hartman. And you just like go on this journey, because it's like there is a way to do this. Like you begin to learn the strategies and the tactics and the techniques that these other people, like the stand on the shoulders of giants concept, have started to apply before you. Because I still remember the first time someone sent me one of Eric's things, and I'm like, this dude deadlifts 600 pounds. And then he just like sat there and talked to me about this scapulohumeral rib cage rhythm and like all this other stuff. And at that time, like I didn't know anything about anything, right? And I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. Like that you can be really strong, and then you also kind of like know anatomy and biomechanics and all this stuff. I would love to know, with your experience over time, kind of chasing that holy grail of being able to do the thing you love and actually feel good while you do so, what are some of like the really big rock things that you found help you personally, or even your clients?
training around things in the weight room, I think is fairly easy. It's easy to make if you have an achy shoulder or whatever. It's easy to make progress on, of course, with just your shoulder shirt. It's easy to still make progress with your leg strength. It's easy to still use your core, the other arm, and then to do rehab stuff with your banged up shoulder until you're feeling better. That was always fairly easy for me. I rarely actually hurt myself in the weight room. The hard part for me was the combination of fighting MMA and then doing strength conditioning for MMA, where most of the injuries were coming from MMA. It's the less controlled environment. The weight room's totally controlled. Like you write your program, you know how you feel when you show up. You can stop the set at any time. No one's going to throw you on your shoulder unexpectedly, like that type of thing. So dude, I used to love those commercials. It's the best. Office linebacker. Go if you don't know what he's talking about, go Google that. Go watch those commercials. They're hilarious. But yeah, I mean, like 2006 to 2000, 8, 9, 10. Like I read a lot of Eric's stuff and Mike's stuff and Bill's stuff. Like those guys were fantastic about blending kind of the physical therapy world and the sports performance, exercise physiology, strength coach worlds, like putting it all together where they knew enough about strength conditioning to get you really strong, and they knew enough about physical therapy and rehab to keep you from getting injured or to rehabilitate, all the nagging aches and pains that come with training really hard and trying to improve your performance. So the weight room was always easy. The hard part for me was really the MMA piece. It was trying to figure out like how do I train hard and then at the same time like limit the downside of the unknown that goes into to grappling and sparring where sometimes the injuries are just like you just got like your neck hurts because you got punched in the face. You know what I mean? Like, but that's a part of it. You have to do it. And so I would have done less sparring and less live rolling, and I would have done a lot more like book work really. Um, I had a mentor a while back say that you should balance learning, practicing, and doing. And so learning would be like, watching YouTube videos and reading books and taking notes and whatever. And then practicing would be going to practice, doing your drills and rolling hard and sparring and whatnot. And then doing is like actually competing, having MMA fights, going to jiu-jitsu tournaments or whatever it is. Um, Back then, I did a lot of practicing and a fair amount of doing, and I did some learning certainly, but I would have done more learning. I would have done more bookwork type stuff where um, I was I was actively um, like basically like writing, like taking notes, like outlining my game. Like when they do this, I do that. I used to do this, and when they do this other thing, I go here and like mapping out how and why I do what I do. Writing out the techniques. Finding out writing down where I got stuck that day and the very specific things I need to work on to fix the actual weak links in the chain versus just rolling hard and then just going home and then just rolling hard again. And certainly you learn by doing, like by rolling hard, you learn. But there would have been more focus on um, really finding like the right setups for the things that I do really well, so I can put myself in the position to use my strengths, and then to find out like what are like the biggest holes in my game, and how do I close up those holes. Um, Again, certainly I was doing that at some level, but I would have spent more time thoughtfully um, thinking about those things and actually like writing them down and working through them and having discussions with my coach about them. I would have done more of that stuff where I was getting better and learning. Smarter is better than harder, and I would have spent less time just beating myself up by just. Again, the problem is I fucking love doing that stuff. I was pulling, I needed a coach to tell me not to do it. I think that would have been very helpful. I didn't have any coaches hold me back ever. I had coaches, but they rarely told me not to spar that day or not to go roll hard. Um, and you know, not that I always told them how much I was hurting, or I would keep some of that to myself. Again, like in my case, I'm an MMA fighter. I'm not I'm not over there like bitching and complaining about how hurt I am all the time. Like I'm there because I like it and I understand that like the whole sport is about hurting people and you're going to be hurt. and you should just suffer in silence and shut the fuck up about it and go train. And again, there's pros and cons to that. People that are like that, they might make really good MMA fighters, because that's a great quality to have if you're going to get in a fight, is to realize that getting hurt is just a part of it and just being okay with that. If you're scared to get hurt, you're probably not going to be a great MMA fighter. And so the downside of that, though, is that you end up being more hurt than you probably would be otherwise, and then you can't train as well as you need to train to get as good as you need to get, et cetera, et cetera. So there's pros and cons to all this, but I would have liked to have had a coach that could pull the reins, would have pulled the reins on me at the times that I needed them to.
Yeah, I think two really big takeaways for me there is, one, the distinction between training and competition, because they are very different things, and I think that people sometimes struggle to make the distinguishment between the two. And the easiest way, and I don't remember where I heard this the first time, but I was like, oh, that's really smart. This is brilliant. It's like, in training, right, like you listen to your body in training. In competition, you tell it essentially just to fuck off. Like, that's kind of the distinction between the two, right? And I think the second layer to that is that one is going to be a highly controlled environment where you have the capacity to actually listen and be smart. The other is a highly uncontrolled environment that's very dynamic, and you're having to react, and you can't really spend time worrying about those things, right? Whether it's MMA, football, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, like take your pick of any sport. Like, that is sport. It's chaos. And you take the time with training and practice where you can be super thoughtful, you can be very mindful, you can really listen and understand what's going on, so that when game day comes, you can hopefully kind of shut your brain off and just go do it you've done all the preparation work on, right? But I think sometimes people treat every single day like it's competition game day, and you just can't do it. Like, it's just not going to last for you over the long run. You know, like that's just periodization, right? Like, writing a training program is your ability to decide when I'm applying certain types of stress, at what levels are those stressors being applied, how do I wave it over a week, how is it balanced over a month, how do I take that and stress it out over the course of 12 weeks, 16 weeks, right? Like, all that we're really doing is figuring out when to apply stress, when to pull back on that stress, and trying to like manage that process for the end user here. And I think that that more like mindfulness practice is really important also, right? I just don't think many people take the time after training or after a day, right? Because if you're listening to this, most of you are going to be in that category of, like trying to be strong, trying to be jacked, want to be powerful, want to have a big engine, want to move really well. You're like a souped up muscle car going 120 miles an hour down the highway. You just don't have a GPS in the car. You're just going. And it's like, do you have a practice where at the end of every day you sit down and just like debrief, okay, like what happened? What went well? What didn't go well? What am I liking? What am I not liking with my training, with my nutrition? Too many people, they just don't ever take the time to have those little pit stops, and they just blast through the whole thing. And it's like, well, you can't learn unless you're taking those pit stops along the way to make adjustments, right? I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's things that people just don't do.
Yeah, it's all way easier said than done. Again, especially if you just love to train. and to pull the reins on yourself is to take away like the number one thing that you want to do in your life. That's way easier said than done.
That's where I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Like, that's the value of a coach. A coach is the one who's going to actually make those calls for you, because I think if you're anything like you or me and we make those calls for ourselves, like, I'm probably going to go gas pedal down. Like, if I'm trying to decide between the two options, I'm not going to decide to take my foot off the gas. It's going to be, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go train hard again because this is what I love to do. The value of a coach is as much telling you what not to do as it is telling you what to do. And I think that's a really important point that people overlook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the case of MMA, especially, like the consequences are high. Like if you have a fight coming up and like you're not conditioning that day and you're not training, like in my case, I was like worried about, am I going to be out of shape when I show up if I'm not training? And like, and then I'm going to be in the third round or whatever, and I'm going to be gassed, and like there's going to be a fucking killer on the other side of the ring, and he's not tired yet, and I am tired, and that's a terrifying place to be. You know what I mean? You're going to go to the hospital.
Speaking of hospitals, how about Tony Ferguson this past weekend? Did you see that? Oh my God.
I saw that. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Like, dude just took it to the chin, then just face planted on the mat. It didn't look healthy. Yeah, a nasty knockout.
Dude, he was out cold for like 5 minutes. Yeah, just mashed potato brains.
Yeah, man, that's a tough one. I never suffered like a vicious knockout like that, thankfully. But yikes, man. Yeah, he took it. He took it hard. I did not expect that to happen. That was a very shocking knockout to me. I did not expect Michael Chandler to fucking land a kick to Tony Ferguson and knock him out cold. That was totally unexpected.
Tony's had a rough go of it here. That's like four. I think it's like four fights in a row now. He's just kind of been on this downhill slide, and for a dude that's just like so dynamic and so creative and so fun to watch, he's a fighter that's getting towards the end of his career, and as much as we don't want to admit it, there's going to be some level of a biological clock, unless you're Tom Brady and you get rid of the ball in under 3 seconds, so no one ever has to touch you. Um, we're playing a little bit of a game here, and maybe that biological clock could be a decent transition for us here, because I know, and I saw you guys post about this recently. I haven't had a chance to really dive in and figure out what it is. This rapid health. And I know that it's kind of this combination of, world-class coaches, nutritionists, and all that. We're trying to really dive in and figure out like what's going on with the organism. And it sounds like a really cool idea. Could you unpack that for us?
Yeah, you bet. So me and Anders Varner, and then along with Andy Galpin, who he's a muscle scientist out of Cal State Fullerton, and Dan Garner, he's a functional medicine practitioner and just a fucking overall a very well-read person in the strength conditioning space. He spends a lot of time reading research and has been doing that for many, many years. And those guys have been coaching a lot of UFC fighters and other very high-profile, high-level athletes, and they've been doing all the lab work for those guys. Blood, hair, urine, stool, saliva analysis, getting all the metabolic and physiological data points they possibly can to see the underlying health of the person that they're dealing with. Like if you're a pro athlete, presumably you have a coach for your sport, and you have a coach for strength conditioning. You might have a nutrition coach, etc. But many people do not get a comprehensive look at their labs on a regular basis. I'm of the opinion that you should get labs run on yourself at least like once a year, at least or even every 6 months if you're able. Like, how cool would it be if you had all of your lab numbers every 6 months since you were like 10 or 15 years old? You go to the doctor now and you go, oh, like, God, I just don't have as much energy as I used to. And they run labs on you and they come back and they're like, I don't know, this all kind of looks normal-ish. Maybe your total testosterone was like 600, which is like, if the range is 300 to 1300, 600 is like, you're in the normal range-ish. But what if in the last 2 years you went from 1200 to 600? You were 1200 for a long time, and then all of a sudden in the last 2 years you just tanked. Well, if you had your numbers the whole time, you would be able to see, wait a minute, like I was here, and then all of a sudden something changed, and I just got crushed. And then you can go dig into the rest of your numbers and figure out what's going on, because you have thousands of data points to look at. That's like in an ideal world. Right now, certainly you get some lab work done at the doctors. You go get a complete blood count and a complete metabolic panel or whatever. You get your blood glucose and your cholesterol, and maybe some people get their testosterone and the hormones, sex hormones checked, etc. But for the most part, people don't. If they do it, it's relatively infrequent. And when they do, they're checking, or they're getting access to a handful of markers, but there's many other markers you could see. So basically what we put together was we wanted to run labs on our clients, every 6 months in perpetuity. We're handling all of their, we call them hidden stressors, all of their hidden stressors, which is, stuff like I just mentioned, like we'll monitor your testosterone as an example. We'll monitor your blood glucose and your cholesterol. We'll monitor all these markers just like you would get if you're going to, to a doctor, but it's all tied into the fitness and performance side as well, where we're monitoring your sleep habits and your workouts and your nutrition and your macros. We also check your micronutrient status for everything. So your micronutrients, your B vitamins and your vitamin D, etc. Most people don't get these things checked. Maybe vitamin D. That's like kind of popular right now to get your vitamin D checked. And so we talk about this one vitamin, but we don't talk about all the rest of the vitamins and minerals that you could possibly have, of which there are many. We check all of those things. And so if you don't have enough B5 or B6 to make serotonin, then you're not going to feel normal, but you might not know why. And it might be something as simple as you just need more B vitamins. And so we try to check all the possible data points we can to get a big picture look at the overall health of the people that we are working with. So we fix their internal physiology with nutrition and supplementation plans, and then we fix their visible stress, putting together something that we're probably more familiar with in the fitness space of monitoring their sleep and getting on a good training program and doing macros and getting to a healthy body weight and healthy body composition. We do DEXA scans regularly with our clients. Again, say you're talking about someone like your dad. What if your dad had a DEXA scan done every 6 months for the last 45 years? I don't know what your dad's specific fitness situation is, but like it, anyone's anyone who has had DEXA scans done every 6 months for decades, they're not going to all of a sudden like end up fat because you're monitoring something that's important. What the expression "what gets measured gets managed." Like if you're monitoring all these data points all the time, then you will manage them because you see when things are starting to get off base, and you can correct them. And you can see that when you're correcting them, they're actually getting better. And so, long story short, we put together a program where we have a team of coaches that work with all of our high level clients. So we're both monitoring both their hidden and their visible stressors to get people to be as healthy as possible, not just by getting them to lose 20 pounds, but getting them to get to a healthy body weight, getting them to be a strong individual, working on their mobility and their flexibility, making sure they're sleeping enough, monitoring their hormone status, et cetera. Like making sure that we can fix their health at every level that we can think of. So it's super, super comprehensive is what we've put together, and so far we've been learning a lot and producing fantastic results for essentially everyone in the program.
I love that. Yeah, because the constant touch points are essentially allowing you to grab leading indicators before this actually turns into a problem, right? Because physiologically, most things aren't going to happen like this. Like the body doesn't really like to go that way. Outside of me walking out in the street and getting hit by a bus or being exposed to radiation, like all these changes that we talk about from a health standpoint, if we're thinking about longevity and just healthy aging, like these are things that accumulate over time. Like it takes time for these things to change. And so if you have constant touch points where you're able to get in and see your labs, and I totally agree, like at an absolute bare minimum, like once a year, like you need a comprehensive lab. Like let's look at what the numbers are doing. Because as you mentioned, right, if you look at something in a snapshot, it doesn't really tell you that much, right? Because that's just a number. It's a single isolated number. What matters is what that number has been doing. What's the change? Like what direction is it moving? And those are the things that you have to be paying attention to, ideally on a 6-month, 12-month basis, so that if something is moving in the wrong direction, we can say, okay, cool, like let's actually talk about this and address it before it becomes a real issue, right? It's like, okay, well, I've got like a little, spark fire down there in my basement. Maybe I just pour some water on it now, as opposed to waiting 2 hours and now my whole house is on fire. It's like it's all about timing and scale, and so I love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is really easy to think about if you take it out of the kind of the less tangible world of lab numbers and you put it into the more tangible world of training and performance that we're all very familiar with. Like, so if you got like your once a year checkup and you went to a strength coach and and you told them you tested that your back squat was 275 pounds, right? And you're like, I don't feel very normal. And you test your back squat is 275, and they go, well, the normal range for someone who's in their 30s for back squat is between 185 and 500. So you're fine. Like, what they didn't know is that your back squat 2 years ago was like 500, and then it was 430, and then it was 350. It's like it's been going down for years, and you've been getting more and more out of shape. But like you go to the doctor and they say, well, you're in the normal range for back squats, so you're between 185 and 500, so you're fine. And you go, well, like, am I really fine? I don't want to be fine. Who wants to be just fine? I want to be optimal. And so the medical world kind of operates on just being not sick, like not like they're getting you from really bad to kind of normal. And then the fitness performance world takes people that are kind of normal and they move toward more optimum to as best you can be. Um, we talked about a second ago. We talked about Eric Cressy and Mike Robertson, et cetera. Those guys do a great job of blending those worlds in the physical performance space. Physical therapists take people from being injured to normal, and then strength conditioning professionals take people from being normal to optimum. And we're kind of doing something similar, but less like from a physical therapy perspective, and more from like a total physiological perspective, where we want someone to go from not sick like you have COVID or you have cancer sick, but sick um, like you just your energy is just like not what it used to be, and you don't know why. You have these kind of like mystery symptoms, or you have brain fog and you don't know why. Like these things are tougher to tease out. It's hard to get like one data point and take one pharmaceutical and then all of a sudden like you have complete mental clarity and tons of energy. It's not going to work like that. It's going to be the result of fixing many things. If you are deficient in 4 or 5 different vitamins, and your hormone levels are all out of whack and your cortisol curve is all messed up, well, you're not going to just do one thing and fix that. There's no like one magic pill you can take to fix that. If you can only back squat 185 and you weigh 250 pounds and your mile time is 14 minutes at its best, well, there's no one magic pill that's going to fix that either. If you're doing all that and you're an executive and you sleep 5 hours a night, well, there's got to be a multi-prong approach to fix this problem. It's going to be a year or two of you fixing your diet and fixing your supplementation and taking your vitamins and training your cardio and losing body fat and gaining strength and again getting your sleep optimized, and that could just mean getting more sleep, but that also could mean that you get like one of those pro pad covers from 8 Sleep that kind of monitors the temperature of your bed, or like a chili pad type of thing, or getting an eye mask, or maybe like an allergy season, like I can barely breathe because my nose is so congested and clogged up that like it wakes me up every couple of seconds. Maybe you have sleep apnea. Like there's many layers to this problem, and so our job is to work with someone to get all the information and data points we possibly can, and then not just like give them a training program or 1 or 2 things to do. We're going to work with them for a year or multiple years in a row to fix all of their problems. And most people aren't doing that right now. Most people, it's all kind of siloed. You go to your doctor and they look at your labs and they go, well, you're in the healthy range, so you're fine. You're not dying. Good to go. Now I got to see my next patient in 2 minutes. See you later. Or you're going to go to your strength coach, and they're gonna probably handle some aspects of training and maybe some nutrition also, which is also good. Um, and those people probably don't talk to each other. Your doctor probably doesn't talk to your coach, and maybe your coach doesn't talk to your nutritionist, and et cetera, et cetera. So our goal is to have a team-based approach where someone comes to us and we can handle optimizing their health from many different angles. That is the goal right now. And I think there's, with the last couple of years of COVID especially, there's a lot of distrust floating around of the medical system as a whole. And so I think people are looking for something else right now. I certainly was. When we started putting this together, I knew I was onto something because I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what I've been looking for. I want to do this. I want to be the first client in this program. And then with that kind of thought running through my head, those kind of thoughts running through my head, I'm going, oh, okay, we're totally onto something. If I've been in this industry for a long time and I care a lot about my health and I know all the major players in this space and nobody's doing this, and I've been frustrated because I haven't been able to find this, and now we're offering it, and I want to be the first customer, that means that I'm onto something that I think has legs, and we could really do something really cool here.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that moving forward, the direction things need to be going in is a very comprehensive approach like this. Because, like you mentioned, the silo approach just is not optimal. We're gonna miss too many things, right? It's like, okay, great, you're on a phenomenal training program, but if we really take a look here, like I know that your B vitamins are off, your magnesium is super low, and blah 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 blah, and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, well, it's like if I really want to help you, I need to help you beyond just like, hey bro, like here's how many sets and reps you're gonna do in your squat today, right? And this is where things like if it fits your macros come up short. I appreciate that it matters, right? Like we want to get the food quantity correct because we want to try to get you to some type of a body weight and body composition goal that's going to be healthy for you. But again, like that can totally miss the ball on what the underlying micronutrient status looks like because it's not really focused on that as an outcome goal. So I think that this very holistic, well-rounded approach of strength and performance, rehab, prehab, nutrition, functional medicine, and labs. Like, that's the intersection and the direction we need to be moving in if we really want to help people like truly succeed and be, I think, outrageously successful.
Yeah, the other piece that makes me think that we're on the right track here is that the the toughest part about what we do right now is getting all of our family members to go through it. Because every single person on the team is like, my parents have to do this, my brothers have to do this, my girlfriend needs to do this, my wife needs to do this. And so like we have this like huge list of like the freebies that we're trying to like get to. Like we're selling it like crazy and we're working like working incredibly hard to have it all to to grow well, without having growing pains where, shit's changing and the team is growing and we're trying to make sure that we're fulfilling on all the promises and, it's great. It's really, really fun to be a part of something that's growing really, really fast, especially something that you're excited about and that you believe in. And at the same time, it's like, I want my wife to do it and I want my kids to do it. Like I have little kids. Like I want them to run. I want to run all their labs and everybody wants their entire family to do it, and we're like trying to find the time to get everyone's family to go through it because it's like everybody wants to do it, which again I think means we're on the right track.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, man. So I know we got to wrap up here. I know you got to run, I got to run. So let's make sure we do this before we close here. Where can people go to find you and Barbell Shrugged and all the really cool stuff that you guys are doing if they listen to this? But like, hey, I want to go kind of check out these things that you guys have been talking about.
Yeah, you bet. So certainly you can just listen to Barbell Shrugged. We're podcasts. We're on all the podcast channels, iTunes and Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. You can go to barbellshrugged.com. You can see kind of I'll call it most of our legacy stuff is on there. Like we have tons of training programs and whatnot that we've put out for many, many years now. The more recent stuff, I didn't even mention the Diesel Dad program that we're doing, but if you are a dad and you want some not quite as high level as the rapid stuff. We have a set of Diesel Dad training that doesn't involve labs, and then we also, if you do want to do the labs, we have Diesel Dad stuff that you can upgrade into the labs as well. But if you just want a coach to help handle all your visible stuff, your training, your nutrition, macros, and track your sleep and hold you accountable and all that, just like basic regular high-end coaching. But it's like dad specific. It's all dads that are coaching that program. They understand what it's like to have kids and a career and to not have very much time to train. And all the training programs are they're very short on purpose. We have like a 15-minute AMRAP only program as an example, like on the very low end. If you just don't have much time to train, because dads typically don't have a lot of time to train, we have a dad-specific program called the Diesel Dad. You can go to dieseldadmentorship.com and check that out. Or if you want to learn more about rapid health optimization, you can go to rapidhealthreport.com and check that out. That's the landing page there. Will have a short video kind of walking you through the basics of the program, and then if you put your name and email in on the thank you page, there's a 90-minute video, totally raw and unedited of my business partner Anders Varner of having his labs read to him and the exact report that you would get if you sign up for the program, where it just says, hey, okay, here's all your labs, here's what they mean, full analysis, full nutrition protocol, full supplementation protocol, the full explanation, completely unedited, so you can see exactly what you get. It's totally worth watching. I probably watched that video like 5 times. Like it's very impressive to watch Dan Garner, who does all of our lab analysis. Very smart and just it's for someone like me that thinks that stuff is really cool. I literally could like sit on my couch with popcorn and just watch it like a movie because I just think it's very, very impressive. He's very, very good at it. So go to rapidhealthreport.com and you can check all that out.
Awesome, man. Well, Doug, thanks so much, dude, for coming on. Really nice getting to kind of just catch up, hang out here for a little while. It seems like 45 minutes went by really quickly here. I feel like I had a ton more things I wanted to talk about, but this was good. This was fantastic, man. Thank you again for coming on.
You bet. Oh, and you can follow us on Instagram and all that, of course. Barbell_shrugged, or my personal one is Douglas E. Larson.
Nice. And we'll throw all that in the show notes for y'all. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, we got to run, but we'll talk to you guys next week. Later.
Right on. Thanks, James.